Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Going Rounds podcast. Back again on Thursday, here to talk some more combat sports and MMA. So, welcome if you are here, and I appreciate you if you are. The chat's open. Hit me up if you got questions or comments on anything, want to discuss anything. I try to be interactive as much as I can. So, yeah, check it out. Hit up the chat if you want. Otherwise, don't forget to like and subscribe as usual. Help me grow the channel. Social media is going on down there. You can hit that up too later. And yeah, welcome. Let's see. There's not a ton for this week because there was no UFC last week, which was kind of sad considering we had a month. Yeah, I think it was like a month off. And then we had a fight night and then a pay-per-view and then straight up to what do you call it? Sorry, getting text messages. Straight up to another date, another week off. So kind of weird. But there was one championship that happened over the weekend. That was like the only combat sports event that happened this past weekend. So yeah, we'll get into talking about that first off. But again, I need to figure out that clock because it actually says 7:02, but it looks like it's 0:02. I don't know if it's just too bright or if I messed it up. I unplugged it like 3 times, kept having to reset it. And yeah, now it looks all stupid, but whatever. It just caught my eye. That's why. Just like other things, other little things that catch my eye, and I can't help but to comment on them. But anyway, this week has been just another normal week. Work hasn't been too crazy, and yeah, just waiting to get to the weekend as usual because, the weekend is where it's at, right? It's when you can get other shit done. That's when you can do other fun things. The week is like, there's no time ever. I feel like I get home from work, I barely get to do anything, and then I got to go to bed and wake up and do it all over again with like very little time. But I'm always prepping for this and stuff too. This week was fairly easy. I went out of town for work. Monday, Tuesday, I came back yesterday. So, I got most of my stuff done while I was gone. It's not much else to do when I'm out of town, sitting in a shitty hotel room, never in any fun places. So, I just work on getting all this stuff done. So, I was ready pretty early. Let's see if hopefully I didn't mess anything up. There's not a lot to go over though, again, because even as far as just regular news go, the man, my phone is just nonstop. It's annoying. Cameras and text messages, weird. Anyway, and now the dogs are barking. I'm sure you heard that in the background, but hopefully that stops. We're dog sitting my daughter's Trend's dogs, so we have an extra one here. So that makes for craziness because our dogs get a little crazy when there's another dog around. But that's dogs, right? So anyway, yeah, what was I saying? Oh man, I totally lost track. Oh yeah, there was not a whole lot going on in combat sports news at all, really. Like, I got one thing to cover, and that's the one championship fight from last weekend. But as far as other news and stuff goes, I didn't really prep anything because there's not a whole lot going on, like I said. But, there's the constant talk of UFC 300, like what's going to happen. Who's going to be the main event. It's still going back and forth. They talked about Leon Edwards defending his title, which wouldn't bring too many eyes because it's just any of his opponents aren't really there. They're not big names. Of course, there's the Conor McGregor talk because there's always Conor McGregor talk. And it seemed like, well, see, here's the thing. So Conor has posted things on social media kind of talking about 300 as if he's getting booked. And that's the problem is other people have done it too. Israel Adesanya just posted something, I think, yesterday with from the movie 300. He posted that up and showed him and Dricus du Plessis, who's the new middleweight champion. And yeah, that'd be a kind of a banger of a fight, but I don't know if it's 300 main event worthy. But Izzy always brings the eyes and puts the butts in the seats. I think that's going to happen anyway because UFC 300 by its name is going to sell. And they haven't, everyone's been complaining about the card not being the best or whatever, but I think the UFC is trying to make that main event something that's really, really, like, really exciting. Dana always says things, he said this time that, everyone's not going to be able to handle what the main event is. But, he says shit like that all the time. Maybe things fall through in the background or something, but when it comes down to it, we don't know. And we continue to not know. So we're just waiting on that news, because it's supposed to be big news. So what's it going to be? Is it going to be Conor and Chandler? People have speculated Conor and Nate Diaz coming back for the trilogy fight. But it sounds to me like he's going to be boxing Jorge Masvidal. So there's no way he's coming back to the UFC and still able to do that. I don't think the UFC is going to let that happen. So we can just kick those rumors out, basically. And, what else is there? Of course, there's always the rumors of other fighters coming back that have retired. Khabib, GSP. Every year there's a rumor about GSP coming back, but I don't think it's happening. So let's see what else. There hasn't been much else being talked about. Brock Lesnar is a definite no, because if you haven't heard, there's been some speculation and allegations going around about things that he has done that are not so great. And coupled up with that is in the WWE, I don't follow wrestling very much, but they are in business with the UFC now because they're all under the same header of TKO. And, so one company like Endeavor bought out both, and now it's under that banner. So, you hear a lot about it because of it being so close to MMA. A lot of the MMA journalists and stuff talk about it, report about it. So there's a big thing going on with Vince McMahon, who's the main guy for WWE, has been for a long time. And obviously he's a character and does a lot of crazy shit, known for his antics and stuff. But there's allegations that there was sexual assault allegations last year, or maybe the year before, and he I guess resigned, retired, whatever you want to call it, to get away from all that. All that kind of subsided, and now he came back January of last year, I think they said, and he's been around for the year, and now all of a sudden we got more allegations of actual sex trafficking, which, that a lot of people are saying it's not far-fetched considering who he is and how much money he has and all that stuff. But, the tie-in with Brock Lesnar is that basically Vince McMahon was paying this girl, one of his employees, and kind of forcing her to do things that maybe she didn't want to do, but she was doing for the money. That sounds like sex work to me, but I'm not going to sit here and accuse her of doing something for the money. But apparently money was supposed to change hands up to like $3.5 million, and she only got one. So now she is suing. Sounds weird and sketchy, but the things that have been talked about, the text messages that have been released and all that stuff, it's pretty bad. The things that were being done to her, or that were being forcing her to do, basically. So it's crazy. I don't know. I don't follow it that close. I heard some stuff on some podcasts. That's how I have any knowledge of it. But the Brock Lesnar tie-in is that Brock was one of the guys that Vince McMahon was setting up with this girl. So basically paying her to go and do whatever he wanted, which is crazy because Brock doesn't really seem like that type. But I don't know. He's the main name that came up, though. So when it comes down to it, he's a big name, and he's a big draw for both the WWE and the UFC. And now, with all this going on, he's not going to be around for a little bit until all this stuff until he at least clears his name. So I haven't heard much from him or from his people on any of this. I haven't seen any kind of quotes or anything like that. So it's kind of crazy stuff, man. Last year we had Dana White slapping the shit out of his wife. And now this January, we have this whole thing with Vince McMahon. So, and of course, it came out right after this $5-point-something billion deal they have with Netflix. So I guess the WWE is going to be showing live events on Netflix. Netflix is trying to get into the live sports, the market. So with Endeavor kind of overlooking and having TKO as the banner for both WWE and UFC, that could mean when ESPN's contract is up with the UFC, they might have some stiff competition with Netflix throwing all this money out there. Now, to throw $5 billion or something like that at the WWE, goddamn, Netflix is rolling. I guess we knew that kind of, but that's a lot of fucking money. And for them to maybe throw some money at the UFC, because I know the UFC's got a pretty lucrative deal with ESPN right now. And that's why they don't really care about some of their events. They just throw them out there. Like, fight night, who cares? We're not stacking this card. We'll save it for the big pay-per-views. Because they just have to fulfill the contract. They have to have a certain amount of fights throughout the year. That's why you get some of these kind of downer, shitty fight cards. Because as long as they're filling up a card and they can put that product out there, that's all that matters. They're getting their money. They're fulfilling their contract. So it's what it is. But yeah, we'll see what happens, because the Netflix deal happened, and then shortly after, all these allegations come out about Vince McMahon. And, he's the main guy. He's the face. He's like the Dana. Well, most people say Dana's like the Vince McMahon of the UFC. But if you turn it the other way around, obviously, Vince McMahon is the Dana White of the WWE. And he's been around forever, for much longer than Dana. So, I mean, it doesn't take a hit to the Netflix deal, because apparently with him resigning and all that, they're happy with it. They're like, whatever, he's out of here. Get him the fuck out. He's out. Okay, cool, we're good. Now let's keep it rolling. That's how these deals work. It is what it is. But we'll see what happens with all that. It's an ongoing process. Obviously, it's all allegedly. So, but there's text messages that prove a few things to be pretty bad. But this cancel culture stuff, a lot of things come out that may not be 100% true. So sometimes people do things for money that maybe they didn't want to do, but they do it anyway. You can't sue somebody. But that's a little insensitive, because it sounds like some vile shit was happening. So I don't condone that at all. I don't think that that's cool at all. But people do crazy shit for money sometimes, man. So anyway, I went off on a tangent about that one, because that is one of the bigger things in the news right now, all around. So, maybe not in mainstream news or whatever, but in sports news, that's a big deal. And it's a big, that's a big story right now that's ongoing. And with the tie-in of Brock Lesnar, MMA is going to pick it up too. So, yeah, that's tough, man. I hope that all can get sorted out, and yeah, they'll just finish that up, and then we'll hear about whatever kind of settlement, or maybe it'll just go away. You never know. But this week we have a UFC fight night, UFC Vegas 85, yet another fucking Apex card. I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love to be in the Apex with very few, like, fans and audience members of sort. It sounds to me like there's only like 100 to, maybe 150 people in there tops. Now, that sounds like a lot of people, except when you put it up against the 14,000 that happen in most of these arenas and stuff, or stadiums, or wherever they're going, usually. So it's anywhere from 12 to 16,000 people. So you get the Apex card, and not only is the cage smaller, but obviously the viewing area is smaller as well. So I'm hearing that some guys don't even get tickets for their family, their wives even. Not even one ticket for their wife. So some of these guys are getting pretty sick and tired of fighting in the Apex. They don't get the exposure that they would normally get. They don't get the crowd amplification. They get amped up from the crowd. They feed off the crowd. When you're doing well in a fight, you like to hear that crowd in the background just screaming and yelling, and it hypes you up. Some people get thrown off a little bit by it, but for the most part, a lot of these guys feed off of it. That's what they're out there to do, And then when you speak on the mic afterwards in that post-fight, interview in the cage, like, who are you talking to? You got to talk to the camera. Now, you reach a lot of people that way, but it's different, and everything's different. So the Apex kind of sucks for that. So this card isn't the best. but it isn't the worst. There's some decent names, and we're gonna hit that up here in a few. We'll start with some combat sports news as usual. Like I said, there's not a whole lot, so I'm just gonna hit up this one championship fight, do a little review on that. There's some craziness that happened in this one though. So yeah, let's just get to it and get started with combat sports news. We had one championship, one 165. It's tough to say because one, the ones are like, it's a lot. But we had Superlek versus Takeru in the main event. It was a flyweight kickboxing world championship. And then we had Cade Ruotolo versus Tommy Langaker in a lightweight submission grappling world championship. Shinya Aoki was supposed to fight Sage Northcutt, as you can see here in this poster, but at the last minute, Northcutt had to pull out. I think he was, I don't know if it was a sickness or an injury, but he did have to pull out, which was unfortunate because it sounded like he was really looking forward to fighting Aoki because he's kind of a legend and one of those guys that, you know, you get the win over somebody like that and it's pretty big for you. But he had to pull out. So John Lineker steps in on short notice in an open weight MMA fight against Shinya Aoki, and unfortunately he lost by submission in round 1. But that's what Aoki is good. That's what Aoki is good at, is those submissions. So you know he's kind of a legend in that manner. So he got the win in the first round over John Lineker. Going back to the co-main event, the lightweight submission grappling world championship, Cade Ruotolo was the champion and retained his belt in a unanimous decision win over Tommy Langaker. And then we also had Yoshihiro Akiyama versus Nikki Holskin, which was supposed to be a pretty good fight. And yeah, it didn't last long. It was a TKO win for Nikki Holskin in the first round, which if you remember, if you were listening or watching last week, I talked about Nikki Holskin being a pretty high level kickboxing fighter. And with his, you know, coming into MMA, like that carries over well, and especially when you fight another striker. And Akiyama, or Sexy Yama, if you knew him from back in the day in the UFC, that was his nickname. But it's pretty funny. But he, yeah, he's a striker as well. And apparently he tried to stand and bang with Nikki Holskin, and it didn't fare well for him. Round 1 TKO win for Nikki Holskin. And that's about it. Let's see. The rest of the poster was just the women's fight. Let's see what happened there. That was Itsuki Hirata versus Ayaka Miura. That was an atomweight MMA fight. Miura got the win by unanimous decision on that one. And the only other fight, there was 2 other fights. Oh, Gary Tonin, submission artist to the T, high level elite grappler, wins his featherweight MMA fight against Martin Nguyen by submission. No surprise there, by submission in round 1. So he got the best of Nguyen. And then the only other fight on the main card was Murat Grigorian versus Sitahachi Sitsongpyeong. Oh my God. I don't even know how I just even said that. I don't even think I said it correctly either. But that was a catchweight kickboxing fight. Martin Grigorian gets the win by KO in the 3rd round. But that main event was crazy. And the reason for that, it's a flyweight kickboxing world championship fight with Superlek being the reigning defending champion against Takeru Sagawa, and this was the outcome. Superlek is a fucking animal with those kicks, man. Holy shit. Look at you can see the connection on that leg kick in that top picture, and then you go down to the bottom left, and that's the outcome. After the fight, look how fucking bruised up. I mean, that looks like a side of beef that someone beat the shit out of with a baseball bat. It's insane. And you know, that's Sagawa walking out, leg bandaged up, on crutches. I mean, that's shades of Jose Aldo in his heyday versus Uriah Faber, when Faber like couldn't walk for 2 weeks after taking all those crazy leg kicks from Jose Aldo. Look that fight up from back in the day. Holy shit. It's insane. And then if you do a bit of a deep dive, you probably don't have to go very deep. You'll be able to see the damage done to Uriah Faber's legs after that fight with Jose Aldo. So yeah, this was nasty though, man. That's some horrible bruising. You can just imagine how bad that fucking hurts that guy's leg. I mean, look at the connection with the shin to the quad there. Oh my god. And you can just tell why he got those bruises, because that was only one of the many kicks that Super Leg landed. Fucking crazy, man. These Muay Thai kickboxers and these guys with these leg kicks, these small guys especially, he's a Thai guy. He's from Thailand. So that's what they do. They condition their shins to take a lot of damage for, being checked, and also connecting with kicks like that. That doesn't only hurt, that of course hurts the guy getting kicked 1,000 times more than it hurts the guy kicking. But if your shins are not used to that kind of shit, you're gonna throw one or two of those and it's gonna hurt you too. So it's pretty insane. That damage is hardcore, and fucking Tagawa's a beast for being able to walk away after that without being in a wheelchair. Uriah Faber definitely was in a wheelchair, but he got both his legs beat the fuck up. So go back and check that out. That was a crazy fight, though. If you want to see, this damage happen in action, I'm sure you can get to One Championship somehow. I'm not exactly sure how to go back and watch the fights. I don't know. Was this a pay-per-view? Oh shit, I think this was a pay-per-view, which means you might not be able to see it, but I'm sure you can go on social media, which I did, and I saw on Instagram. Go to One Championship's Instagram, and I'm sure you can see a few highlights of these nasty leg kicks. So yeah, that's One Championship, man. Craziness. So yeah, let's move on to the UFC Vegas 85 or UFC Fight Night 235, whatever you want to call it. There's so many different numbers because the fight nights are numbered, I think overall, but when it happens in the Apex, they started this like UFC Vegas and then a number, and they're up to 85. So I go with the shorter one because UFC Fight Night 235 is just a lot to write out. And you can, if you Google it, if you look it up on YouTube, check a hashtag, you're gonna find it under UFC Vegas 85 or UFC Fight Night 235. So all these different names just gets confusing, but yeah, UFC, whatever. Let's go with, let's get started here on this might be a very short podcast because honestly, I'm going over this card and I don't have a whole lot else to talk about. And I feel weird even saying that, but honestly, I don't go very short very often, especially if I'm live. But there has just been just not very small amount of news or big things happening. But this fight night does begin the 11 weeks of straight fights every single weekend for the UFC, whether it be a fight night, a pay-per-view. So I gotta look at a calendar. 11 weeks, which means this one is taking place this Saturday, Saturday, February 3rd. So that puts us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that puts us to April 13th. So I guess maybe April 20th, there's going to be a break, but 11 weeks would put us at April 13th. And I believe that's when UFC 300 is. Let me look that up too, because I'm pretty sure date UFC 300, April 13th. So they're gonna take a break after that big event because I'm sure the production, everyone's gonna be working their ass off, and they're using up a lot of their star power and a lot of their fighters for UFC 300. So when it comes down to it, they're gonna take a break because it's gonna be needed after 11 straight weeks, and not to mention 11 weeks in a row, regardless of a big card like that happening in the mix of all of it. That's going to be 3 pay-per-views in the middle of all that. One in February, one in March, and then the one in April, and April being 300. UFC 299 is a big card stacked. That's happening in Anaheim, and then the one this month is happening. No, that's happening in Miami. The one this month with Ilya Topuria and Alexander Volkanovski is happening in that one's in Anaheim, California. So, at least they're not going overseas. That would probably put a strain on things a little more. But yeah, 11 straight weeks for fights, which content. But it's going to be a lot to talk about, a lot to cover. I'll have, recaps and previews and everything in between. And then any other combat sports events that happen, I'll be covering as well. So it's going to be a busy few weeks. Few weeks meaning 11. 11 in a row. I try to do the podcast every week regardless if there's fights going on that week or not, because there's always at least something to recap. But yeah, we're not going to be short of content for the next few weeks. So maybe this week these past couple weeks, maybe we're good to have a little bit of downtime, not so much stress on having a lot of things to prep and stuff like that. But yeah, let's take a look at this the prelim card here for UFC Vegas 85. Let's see, let's see, the second fight of the night, Landon Quinones, 7-2, in a lightweight fight versus Markel Medeiros, who's 8-1. Luana Carolina, 9-4 in a flyweight fight, a women's fight against Julia Stoliarenko, who's 11-7. Let's see, who else do we have here? Tembe Gorimbo, I think, is the guy who is making his debut. He's a South African fighter. Nickname is The Answer. That's Frankie Edgar, bro. You can't have that nickname. Nope, he's not the guy I was thinking of. But he's had 2 fights in the UFC and he's 1-1. So he's coming off a win right now. But he's fighting Pete Rodriguez, who's 5-1. Azat Maxim versus Charles Johnson in a flyweight fight there. And then the featured prelim fight going into the main card is Molly McCann, Meatball Molly, versus Diana Belbita in a strawweight women's fight. So that's Molly McCann going down in weight. They fought each other once before a while back, and I believe Meatball Molly got the win on that one, but I'm going to double check that. When did they fight? Oh, yeah, so they fought in 2019, and that was at flyweight. No. Yeah, flyweight. So it was 125. So now they are both down in the strawweight division at 115. And, Meatball Molly, her nickname's Meatball because she's, was kind of a bigger girl. Like, I guess this is what she explained. But now she's at 115. She's looking great. Like a lot of fighters that go down in weight like that, when it looks like they're already big for their weight class, wind up going down a weight class, and it's usually a struggle. And you could tell a lot on the weeks leading up, the days leading up to the fight. But according to everything I've heard and what I've seen, she's looking pretty damn good, pretty in shape, and she's 13-6 overall in MMA. And I believe she's coming off a win. Nope, coming off a loss. Sorry, I always do that. But she's on a 2-fight losing streak. Actually, Julia Stoliarenko, who's fighting lower in this card as well. I just mentioned she got a submission loss against her, and then before that was Erin Blanchfield, who's a fucking beast. So I can't blame her for that one. But they're both first round submission losses. And I mean, before that, she was on a 3-fight win streak. That last fight against Hannah Goldie, she looked super impressive in. That was a first round TKO by spinning back elbow and then finishing up with punches. So that was a damn good win for her. And she's looking to get another performance like that against Diana Belbita, who she's beat before. Belbita is 15-8. Let's see. Overall, she's coming off a loss as well to Karolina Kovacevic, who is a former title contender, and she fought for the title before as well. So Belbita looks like she's a kind of a streaky fighter. It's like win-loss, win-loss, win-loss. A lot of decisions, you know, that's what happens in the women's division, unfortunately. But a submission win, a few submission wins, and TKO wins. So, you know, this could be a pretty exciting fight because Molly McCann likes to stand and bang. Like, she's a striker. But I guess she's been working on the ground game and stuff. You know, a lot of her wins are by TKO or decision. A lot of her losses are by submission, though. So she needs to watch it when it gets to the ground, and hopefully the weight cut doesn't affect her too much. I like Meatball Molly a lot. Like, her and Patty Pimblett came up and were, you know, got the big sponsorship from Barstool Sports, and I guess they're still putting, you know, they're still supporting them quite a bit. I mean, Molly McCann just opened up like a eatery or something like that in I forgot where, somewhere overseas, but yeah, and she said she had the backing of Barstool Sports and Dave Portnoy, so that's pretty dope. Patty Pimblett as well was, you know, mixed up with all of that, and then, you know, they got the attention from Drake because they're always fighting on the same card, and you know, they're big names and they're pretty popular. So Drake was behind them and betting on them and rooting for them and bought them both Rolexes as well. Not to mention, you know, Meatball Molly and Patty Pimblett are like super close friends too. So, but yeah, that's just a little background on that one. But yeah, that should be a good fight to lead into the main card, which we will now touch on here. We got the first fight on the main card, Gilbert Urbina versus Charles Radtke. 27 for Urbina, 33 for Radtke. Urbina's 7-2 overall in MMA. He's 1-1 in the UFC. He's got 2 wins by KO, TKO, and he hasn't lost in that category. He's 2-1 with submissions and 3-1 in decisions. So pretty mixed up there, you know. He's coming off a win. We got Radtke with a MMA record of 8-3. UFC record is 1-0, so undefeated, but he's only had one fight in the UFC. 3-1 in KO TKOs, 2-0 in submissions, and 3-2 in decisions. Coming off a win, so they're pretty even there with their records and whatnot, and with the ways of winning. So this seems like a pretty even kind of fight. What am I looking at here? Oh, there we go. Okay, yeah, this looks like a pretty even fight as far as you know, matchup wise. Urbina coming off that win. Let's see, who did he beat in his last fight? Orion Kose, but that was a TKO win. Oh my god, it's like everybody wants to respond to my all my stuff from social media right now, so my phone's just like nonstop. But yeah, he had a loss to Brian Battle before, and Sean Brady back in the LFA days. So yeah, Urbina, and then Charlie Radtke coming off a win over Mike Mathetha. But yeah, if you count his fights outside of the UFC, he's on a 4-fight win streak. So he's doing well, and yeah, I feel like this should be a pretty good matchup to start off the card. Radtke has this just I'm sorry, I totally lost my train of thought. Yeah, so this was his last fight, though, his only fight in the UFC, and he got that. It was a unanimous decision win. So yeah, anyway, that starts off the main card. Moving into some tough ass names. It's gonna be hard to say. I wish maybe I need to find a way to put these in to like Google or something and be able to play. That's what I need to do. I need to start, but I don't know, you know, Google's not always correct when it comes to names. I usually listen to podcasts and stuff that do like Anik and Florian podcast, because John Anik is a commentator. He plays like the like the files that he has that the UFC gives him. They record the fighters and they have them say their name like 2 or 3 times in a row. I know I've said this before, but and then they have them like slow it down and really enunciate the name and how it's supposed to be said. So I listened to that, and so that's how I catch on to how to say some of these names. And you know, when these guys are in the lower portions of the cards or on a card that's not very stacked, you don't get to hear a lot about some of these guys down lower in the card and stuff, but so it's harder to kind of make out the names, but I give it a shot anyway. I think I'm gonna sneeze. Hold on. Whew, sorry about that. I don't know why. I feel like for like the past 3 or 4 shows, I've had to sneeze in the middle of it. It's ridiculous. I was sick for a little while, so I think it's still a little remnants of that. But anyway, Elias Khizriev versus Mahmoud Muradov. Told you, tough fucking names to say. But Khizriev, maybe, 33 years old, 12-0, undefeated in MMA, 1-0 in the UFC. So he's only had 1 fight in the UFC so far. 5-0 on KO TKOs, 3-0 in submissions, and 4-0 in decision wins. So mixing it up pretty good there. I mean, that's 5 KO TKO, 3 submissions, and 4 decisions. I mean, it could go any way with him. Sounds like he's pretty well rounded because he can do it all. And then you got Mahmoud Muradov, who is also 33 years old, 26-8 in MMA, 4-2 in the UFC, 17-1 in the KO TKO column. Damn, that's a lot of KOs. 3-4 in subs, which means he loses more than he wins in subs. So that's something to watch out for there, because Khizriev is 3-0 in the submission category. So if he, gets that submission, he might have a decent chance of getting the win there. But you got 6-3 in decisions, and he's also coming off a win. Khizriev is, let's see, who his 1 fight in the UFC was against. Dennis Tuiluin. Just another guy with another hard fucking name to say. Hey, listen, I'm not a linguist, okay? So I don't get paid to say any of these things, so I might butcher them, and I'm sorry, I apologize, but it's tough. If you want to try to go read them and see if you could say it, good for you, let me know. But anyway, it was a submission win in his last fight, his only fight in the UFC. That was back in March of 2022, so it's been a minute since he's fought, but he is coming off a win by submission. If you look at Muradov, he's coming off a win as well. A unanimous decision win. Before that, he had 2 losses in a row, one of those being by submission. And like I said, he's 3-4 in submissions, which means there's a possibility he is, susceptible to that submission on the ground with somebody who can put him there and get that to work out for them. But both these guys, lots of striking shown always. He's got a win by flying knee TKO. Also lots of KO TKOs on there. He was 17-1 in that column. So you're looking at him wanting to stand and throw some haymakers and stuff. So that could be a pretty exciting fight. But he's going up against an undefeated fighter, and that's always tough. So we'll see what kind of fight this turns out to be. As far as, I forgot that I was supposed to be giving my picks. Like I said, I'm not betting on anything but the pay-per-views. I'm going to try to do it just for the pay-per-views. But if I want to keep track and documenting it here, because I forgot to say it for the first fight, but I'll go back. Gilbert Urbina versus Charlie Radtke. I'm going to have to say, I like Urbina from what I've seen of him, but I think Radtke is going to be the guy. I feel like he has more experience, and I don't know. He just seems like that dude that can take advantage and use his experience to his advantage. So I'm going to go ahead and call Charlie Radtke for the win here. I'm not going to break down any ways of winning or anything like that, or rounds, unless I feel confident. Maybe I'll throw something in there extra. But for now, I'll say I'll go with Charlie Radtke for that fight, for that first fight of the night on the main card. And when there's interesting fights like Molly McCann versus Diana Belbita in the prelims, especially that featured prelim card, I'll make a pick for that one too. I'm going to go ahead and go with Molly McCann. Although I am a little worried with her dropping weight. She's looking like she's doing well. I think she said as of yesterday, she only had like 4 pounds to lose, which is good. That means she's on par to make weight. But those last few pounds is always the worst, from what I've heard. So I've never done weight cutting, thank God. Maybe I need to though. I mean, I get it, but I've never had to do weight cutting for an event like that. So when it comes down to it, all I know is what I've heard, and you hear constantly from fighters about the tough weight cuts and how the last 1 to 3 pounds is always the hardest and the worst. So she does have the hard part coming up, but she doesn't have a lot to lose. It's not like she's got to go through losing 4 or 5 pounds before getting to those rough last 3 or 2 or 1, you know. So I'm rooting for Molly because I do like her as a person and as a fighter. Diana Belbita is, if you look her up, she's fairly good looking. And I saw a clip of her earlier talking about having the best hair in the UFC for the women. I don't know what that was about. It's just a random clip. But again, fairly good looking girl, pretty damn good fighter. But I like Molly McCann a lot, so I'm going to go ahead and root for her, just for the win overall. So now in this fight with the undefeated Khizriev versus Muradov, this one's tough because I don't know a lot about Khizriev, but from what I see from Muradov, and I do remember seeing him fight a couple times, if he drops you and he gets you to the ground, I mean, that's gonna be tough for Khizriev. But I feel like he's pretty well rounded. I'm gonna say, damn, who do I go with here? I'm gonna say Khizriev, being the undefeated fighter, is gonna keep that undefeated record and get the win in this middleweight fight. So yeah, that's the first 2 fights on the main card. 1 fight in the prelim. Let's move on to the next fight, the women's fight in the main card. Viviana Araujo versus Natalia Silva. Both these girls are pretty wild in the cage. I mean, both of them are fucking energetic as all hell, and they got fast strikes. They both have submissions. They you know, pretty well-rounded fighters, pretty even when it comes to most things. I mean, they damn near look the same. Honestly, it's kind of crazy because when their fight hair is kind of similar, the way that they do their hair, and they have the same type of skin, same kind of you know, somewhat facial features. When their hair is pulled back, they look pretty similar. So it's kind of tough to distinguish the difference between them. But when it comes down to it, Araujo is a beast, but she is the older fighter at 37 years old, in the flyweight division. I mean, fuck, that's 115. But she's 12-5 overall in MMA, 6-4 in the UFC, 3-1 in that KO TKO column, 4-0 in submissions, and 5-4 in decisions. And she's coming off a win. Let's check who that win is over. Jennifer Maia, who is a badass jiu-jitsu fighter and just a good overall fighter. That was a unanimous decision win for Araujo, and that was back in October. Before that, she was on a 2-fight losing streak, but against big names, Alexa Grasso and Amanda Ribas. So she's fought a lot of big names, but Natalia Silva, being 11 years younger at 26, she's 16-5 overall, 4-0 in the UFC, undefeated in the UFC. It's tough. I mean, she's got some pressure on her right there. 5-1 in the KO TKO column, 7-2 in submissions, 3-2 in decisions. Like I said, pretty even. I mean, Araujo's undefeated in submissions. She's never been defeated by a submission, basically. So that's the only one that it's kind of lopsided there. But I mean, Silva's got more submission wins she's got by 3, and she's got 7, but she has lost by submission. So 5-1 with the KO TKOs. It's pretty good. But I mean, she's undefeated in the UFC. Araujo, like I said, coming off that win over Jennifer Maia, which is right here. And I do remember her striking looked pretty good in this fight, from what I remember. And I mean, her overall fight was pretty good, and a lot of decision wins though. I mean, a lot. So you can kind of almost bet on that here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Like 10 of her last 10 fights have all been by decision, whether win or lose. So she likes to fight out the full 15 minutes. Maybe it's not to her liking, but that's what happens with her fights. So, but Natalia Silva, let's check what her last fight was. Andrea Lee. She's actually on oh wow, how did I mess that up? Oh, duh. She's 4-0 in the UFC, which means she's on a 4-fight win streak. But if you count the fights outside of the UFC, she hasn't lost since 2017. So that is definitely some pressure on her back to keep that win streak going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So she's 10-0 she's on a 10-fight win streak. 4-0, 4 of those being in the UFC. And she fought Jasmine Jasdavicius, who we just saw get a damn good win last fight night. Or was that fight night, or was that that was the pay-per-view. But let's see who else. Teresa Bleda, Victoria Leonardo, and her last win being over Andrea Lee. So 2 pretty good names in there for her wins. Decision, TKO, decision. And then before that was submissions like crazy. So she's a damn good submission fighter. She's good on the ground. I feel like that's where she's probably going to have the advantage. She needs to not let this go to decision, though, because it seems like that's what Araujo gets to all the time, and she's won quite a few of those as well. So in this fight, I'm going to have to... Let's see, my pick. I like Araujo a lot, but I'm gonna have to go with Silva in this one. She kind of annoys me a little bit because she's like way too hyper, I guess, when she talks. I believe I'm thinking of the right one, when she talks on the mic, and English is not her first language, so it's tough. But she's a damn good fighter. There goes the dogs again. But yeah, TKOs and KOs and lots of submissions. So I feel like she's gonna have the advantage on the ground. And I don't know. I'm thinking I'm gonna go with the younger one of the two, the undefeated in the UFC, Natalia Silva, for the win. Let's move on to Randy Brown versus Muslim Salikhov. This should be a damn good fight as well. Randy Brown is one of those guys who, whether he wins or loses, is involved in a pretty exciting fight. He's been around for a little bit, 33 years old, 17-5 overall, 11-5 in the UFC. Like I said, he's been around for a bit. 16 fights in the UFC, that's quite a few. 6-2 in the KO TKOs, 5-2 in submissions, and 6-1 in decisions, coming off a win against Muslim Salikhov, a little bit older, 39, 19-4 overall in MMA, 6-3 in the UFC, 13-1 in the KO TKO column. So that's a lot of fucking KOs, TKOs. 13, and only lost once by that method. Submissions 2-2, decisions 4-1. So really the lopsided column here is that KO TKO wins and losses. 13 wins by KO or TKO for Muslim Salikhov. But Randy Brown, like I said, 16 fights in the UFC. His last win coming off of Wellington Turman in June of last year. That was a unanimous decision win for him. Before that, he lost to Jack Della Maddalena by submission. And then he was on a pretty good win streak, 4 wins in a row. All except for one by decision. That one win was by submission. So Good mix of wins and losses by submission. Lots of decision wins. Couple big names in there: Jared Gordon, Alex Oliveira, and Francisco Trinaldo. So pretty good wins there for him. A couple between 21 and 22. Lost to Vicente Luque. A win over Worley Alves, Brian Barberena. A loss to Nico Price. Win over Mickey Gall. Lost to Bilal Muhammad. So he's fought some big names. So Randy Brown's been around for a while. He's got that experience with big name fighters and in big situations. He does go to decision a lot though, and but he's coming off a win, so that's something that could propel him to getting a win in this one. But Salikhov is a damn good striker, and he's got all those KO TKO wins. He's coming off a win over. If I could stop getting pop-ups on this damn webpage. He's got his last win over. Oh, I'm sorry. He's coming off a loss. Did I say win? Oh, shit. I wonder if I messed that up. Anyway, coming off a loss over Nicholas Dalby. That was a unanimous decision, lost in June of last year. Before that, he had a win and then a loss and then a bunch of wins in a row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So, yeah, kind of. But he's fought some pretty decent names as well. Francisco Trinaldo, Nordine Taleb, Melvin Gillard, and the Leech, Li Jingliang. He lost to Nicholas Dalby, beat Andre Fiallo. But yeah, it's either decisions or TKO KOs. He's got one submission loss. So, I mean, this could be an exciting fight. Randy Brown is definitely down for a scrap from what I've seen of him. So, if he wants to stand and bang with Salikhov, he better get the jump on him, because it seems to me like Salikhov gets those big wins early in the fights as well. Most of his KO TKOs are first or second round. And he's got wins by kicks and punches and elbows. So, he does it all. Salikhov's dangerous. So Randy Brown's got to watch out here. My prediction, this one's tough because I do like Randy Brown, and he is coming off a win. And like I said, he's down to scrap. But Salikhov is dangerous in the standing. Oh man, shit. I'm gonna go with my gut and go with the guy I like more. I'm gonna have to go with Randy Brown, but that's gonna probably be my pick that teeters. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but I'm gonna go ahead and go with Randy Brown on that fight, because that's just the guy I think. I know him a little better. I know how he fights, and he's probably just. I'll pick a favorite in that one. How about that? So he's got a lot of experience too, especially in the UFC. So I'm going to go ahead and go with Randy Brown. We'll see how that one pans out. I don't feel good about that one, but it is what it is. Let's move on to Renato Moicano versus Drew Dober. This, I feel like, taking a page from Ariel Helwani, the people's main event. Renato Moicano versus Drew Dober. Both super exciting fighters. Moicano's a funny motherfucker, man. If you listen to any of his interviews and appearances on podcasts and stuff, he's fucking funny. Like, again, not English is not his first language, so it gets a little tough at times, but he's kind of like Paulo Costa, just not as cringy. Money Moicano is what he calls himself, and he's got merch. He's trying to do the damn thing and get his name out there. And if you watch his post-fight press or his post-fight interview in the cage with Joe Rogan, he didn't even let Joe Rogan talk. He's just like, I fucking love it. I love you, Joe Rogan. And he's like, I fucking love New York. And it's crazy. He was set to trying to go on a run, but he got injured, so he hasn't fought. He hasn't fought in a little bit. I think it's been almost a year since he fought. Yeah, November of 22. So it's been a little over a year since he last fought. But he did get a win over Brad Riddell on that card, and that was a first round submission by rear naked choke. But he is 34 years old, 17-5 in MMA, 9-5 in the UFC. He loses by KO or TKO. So that's important right there. He's 0-3 in the KO TKO column. He's 10-1 in the submission column though. So shit, 10 submissions, only lost once by submission. So he's definitely a ground fighter. 7-1 decisions, coming off a win. And then you got Drew Dober, who is a knockout artist. He's got some heavy fucking hands. He's got a lot of experience. He's 35 years old, 27-12 overall in MMA, 14-8 in the UFC. Lots of fights in the UFC there too. That's 22 UFC fights. Damn. 14-2 with KOs and TKOs. So he's only been knocked out twice, has 14 wins by KO or TKO. 6-4 in the submission column, 7-6 in decisions, and coming off a win over Ricky Glenn back in October. That was a TKO win in the first round. Before that, he lost to Matt Frivola in the first round by TKO. And then you keep moving on those, and you got KO, KO, TKO. That's crazy, man. So that could be the deciding factor. That KO, TKO wins and losses right there. 0-3 for Moicano, 14-2 for Drew Dober. So that makes it tough because Moicano is great with submissions, great on the ground, but he doesn't have any wins by KO or TKO. So if he chooses to stand with Drew Dober, it might not work out for him. I mean, like I said, he's an exciting fighter, and he does have some striking. It's not like he can't strike, but a lot of it is to set up that ground game of his. And he did fight Jose Aldo, and he lost to him, I believe, but he put up a damn good fight in that against Aldo. Let me get to that. Yeah, it was a TKO loss for him, but by Jose Aldo. So if I were to match that up, I would say Jose Aldo, Drew Dober. Who punches harder? I mean, Jose Aldo is technical as fuck and tactical, and he's precise. So a lot of that is the reasons for some of his TKO KO wins. But Drew Dober just has that natural power, and if he lands on you, you might go to sleep. So that's what Aldo had. I mean, not Aldo, but that's what Drew Dober has going for him. But I mean, if he gets in trouble, which he does get hit quite a bit, if I remember correctly, Dober gets hit, and he always suffers some kind of damage. And if Moicano can catch him and drop him or at least put him down, then getting him on the ground, that's his game. He's got 10 wins by submission, and Dober doesn't have a great record in the submission column, so that could be where he gets in trouble. I mean, it still is a winning record, but he's lost almost as many as he's won. So his game is to knock people the fuck out, or at least TKO them. So that could be what we're looking at here. Drew Dober is just a fun fighter to watch because he hits so fucking hard. Not to mention he looks like a goddamn model. Now, these pictures don't do it justice, obviously. And listen, I have no problem with saying when a dude is, Luke Rockhold did not look like a model per se, but he really was a Ralph Lauren model. So Drew Dober just looks like the type. Yeah, everybody says it too. It's funny. They're like, if Drew Dober was like 6'3", nobody would get any girls because he'd have them all because he's good looking. It's just he's kind of short. Because this is a, let's see, I think they're lightweight. Why do I not have that here? I think it is lightweight. But anyway, he's not very tall, so I guess that's his only downfall there. But this one is tough for me to pick too. I thought the Randy Brown one was tough for me to pick, but and here's the thing, I like Renato Moicano. So if I'm going off of just personal feelings about both guys, Drew Dober's a cool motherfucker too. I've heard plenty of interviews with him. He's a little more reserved on the side of being with antics and stuff like that. Moicano's definitely way more energetic and has way more to say and is way more animated when it comes to talking. But Drew Dober talks with his fists and they speak loudly. So That's what makes this tough, and I feel like Moicano is coming to prove something, because he was set in on that track and was fired up to go on a big win streak and be in contention for the title, but then unfortunately he got hurt. So if he can stay healthy, I feel like he's got a chance for sure. Whether it's going to happen starting with a win over Drew Dober or not is tough, because Drew Dober just hits so fucking hard. So I don't know who to go for here, because let's see, my gut says Drew Dober because of that power and because of how he fights. I feel like he's gonna come out swinging, ready to go, and ready to end it early. So, and Moicano can take a punch, but I don't know if he can take that kind of a punch. So he's 0-3 in KO TKOs. So he hasn't won in that method, and he's lost a few times in that method. It's not like he's lost 13 fights by KO or TKO, but he hasn't won any that way. So maybe he doesn't even stand with Dober. Maybe his game plan will be to, take him down. I don't think Dober's a slouch when it comes to wrestling and grappling, but his striking is definitely his game. So I'm over here, I'm just talking about it and continuing to talk because I'm still lost. I don't know who to pick. This is why I don't bet, because I never know who to pick, because then I feel like I know enough about both of them to make it difficult for myself to make a decision. But I'm going to force myself to make a decision, stop drawing this out. I'm going to have to go with Dober. And you know what? Before we end this, after I make my last pick, I'm also going to look at the odds for these fights and see, because I should do that. I should do that anyway, but I think it's cool to make, if I'm going to bet on them, I'm going to look at the odds beforehand, before I make my picks. But I think to get a better grip on how I'm going to pick and who I'm going to pick and what I actually know about these fighters and what I've researched and found, and how much those stats are involved in the real fight, I'm going to say that during fight nights, I'm going to pick blindly and not look at the odds until after I make all my picks. So we'll do that. And I'll look at those as soon as I make my last pick. So let's get to that main event of Roman Dolidze versus Nasruddin Imavov. This should be a good fight. I almost feel like Moicano versus Dober is even more of a exciting fight, or will be. But these two guys are definitely, they're the main event for a reason. So yeah, there's no loss of excitement with these two. Roman Dolidze is 35 years old, 12-2 overall in MMA, 6-2 in the UFC, which means he was undefeated until he got to the UFC. And that happens to a lot of guys because it's just a different level of competition. But he's 7-0 in the KO TKO column, and then 3-0 in submissions, 2-2 in decisions, but he's coming off a loss to Marvin Vettori. So, and that was a unanimous decision loss. He's fighting Nasruddin Imavov, who is 28 years old, so a little younger than Dolidze. 12-4, similar MMA record, 4-2-1 in the UFC, 5-0 in KO TKOs. Submissions are 4-1 and 3-3 in decisions. So pretty similar there overall. 6-2, 4-2, 5-0, 7-0, 4-1, 3-0. Almost completely the same. But Imavov's coming off a no contest due to an accidental clash of heads with Chris Curtis, who just fought in the last card. So he's looking to get back in the win column, because before that he fought Sean Strickland and he lost to him, unfortunately, by unanimous decision. That was a main event fight last year in January, actually. So man, I got something that keeps itching me on my back. It's driving me crazy. But so he's definitely looking for a win here, because he's got a loss and a no contest, and he hasn't won since 2022, early or late 2022. He was on a 3-fight win streak against Joaquin Buckley, Edmund Shabazian, and Ian Heinisch. So those are pretty decent fighters there. He was on a 3-fight win streak, 2 TKOs and a decision. Yeah, so he needs a win because he's got a loss and a no contest in his last 2 fights. So 2023 was not a good year for Imavov. Looking to turn it around in 24. Let's see what he can do. But Dolidze is looking to stop him. Dolidze has actually beaten Phil Haas, who Imavov lost to by a majority decision back in 2021. But as you can see, Dolidze got the best of Haas. Let's see when that fight was. 2022 as well. And that was a KO win in the first round over Phil Haas. So that tells me a little something there too, because if you know Phil Haas, he just fought not too long ago, and he just got his 3rd loss in a row. And it just seems like he's the type of guy who tries to stand and bang with people, but gets knocked out easily. So it's kind of weird. He doesn't really have a chin. So that tells me a little something about Dolidze and Imavov. Imavov lost by a decision over Phil Haas. Against Phil Haas, and then Dolidze knocked him out in the same year too. So if you look at Dolidze's record, it's decision loss his last fight against Vettori, but then they got TKO, KO, KO in the 3 fights before that, and those are all over pretty decent names: Kyle Dawkins, Phil Haas, Jack Hermanson. So a lot of his wins are KO, TKOs. So that striking is no joke. You can see that here. Nasty uppercut to kind of the neck / chin. And then, he's got the ground and pound as well. Looks pretty nasty. And then, just more striking coming from Dolidze, because that's the prominent way for him to fight and win. But Imavov also has striking. We talked about his record, 5-0 in the TKO KOs. Hasn't lost by that method. But Dolidze could be the one to hand him his first KO TKO loss. Let's see. The fight against Chris Curtis only went to the 2nd round. Unanimous decision, loss, and then win. KO, TKO, TKO. So, yeah, but a lot of decisions, man. I don't know. He looks like he's got some pretty decent striking, but, 5-0 in the KO, TKOs, but look at this nasty ass knee right here, just turning his head of Joaquin Buckley. But yeah, the striking never doesn't always lead to a KO, TKO for him. So I don't know, man. This one's tough too, because I feel like Dolidze has a better chance at getting the win here, especially with all those KOs and TKOs. I feel like Dolidze is the way to go here, and with the way that Imavov's record has been the past couple fights, I have to go Dolidze. That's gonna be my pick. So let's go check out before we head off of this page, let's go check out the odds. Let's see, where's the best place? Let's look here. I should have had this up beforehand. I meant to. I gotta make that a part of my process, because I wasn't really doing that before. So all right, let's start from, damn, I don't like this one either. Can we just get like easy odds to look at? Jesus. Bear with me. I'm just trying to find, I need to come up with, or I need to find a proper page to look at for, like, all I want is a goddamn breakdown. Like a quick breakdown of the odds. It shouldn't be that difficult. Let's see. That's the undercard. Randy Brown. Okay, so we'll go Randy Brown. Oh, see, I don't like this at all. I need to just prep for this better. And I will do that because this is annoying. And it doesn't have what I want. So, okay, here, this might be better. Maybe not. This is horrible. I'm fucking up here. I'm sorry. Like, okay, here we go. Molly McCann, Diana Belbita. That was the first fight I picked. Molly McCann is a minus 278 favorite over Belbita, who is a plus 225 underdog. So I bet on I'm picking Molly McCann in that one. So I'm picking the favorite, which wouldn't help me much if I was actually betting. Let's see if I can get to the proper. Okay, now we get to the main card. Gilbert Urbina versus Charlie Radtke. Urbina's a minus 205 favorite over Radtke being a plus 170. Not too bad, not too far off. I went with Charlie Radtke, the underdog there. And there goes a damn dog's barking again. Khizriev is a favorite over Muradov, but it's pretty close. It's minus 162 to plus 136. I picked Khizriev, I'm pretty sure, so he's the favorite. Natalia Silva's a big favorite over Viviana Araujo. Silva's minus 340 favorite over Araujo, who's plus 270. I picked Silva. Randy Brown is a favorite over Muslim Salikhov. Randy Brown being a minus 250, Salikhov being a plus 205. I picked Randy Brown. Renato Moicano is the favorite over Drew Dober, but it's close. Minus 180 for Moicano. Drew Dober is a plus 150 underdog. I went with Drew Dober. Imavov is a... Damn, I went with a lot of underdogs here. I did not realize that. But they're all pretty close. Imavov, minus 166 favorite over Dolidze, plus 140 underdog. So I don't bet on Dolidze fights as a rule. Never know what to expect with that guy, is what the person that made these says. But I don't know. I see it in Dolidze, so I'm going to stick with my pick with the underdog there. So yeah, those are my picks. That's it for UFC Vegas 85. I will have to write these down later. That's what else I need to do, is make a note of what my picks are. Try to make my picks beforehand, maybe, instead of doing it on the fly. But it's kind of fun on the fly because I'm going through all the stats, going through everything, and it kind of helps me. You know, I actually do a lot of this on the fly. Like, I do prep all the visuals and stuff, but I like to go through all of the things I'm gonna. The things just come off the top of my head, and you know, I've thought about getting a teleprompter and stuff like that, and not having a script per se, but like bullet points and keeping track of them that way. But I feel like I just need to do it organically, and that's what I do. And sometimes it's, you know, sometimes I stumble, sometimes I take a little too long, but you know what? I just keep it real. That's all there is to it. Yeah, and I start realizing things here and there when I'm actually trying to break these down a little bit and going over the fights. So it makes more sense to maybe make the picks in the moment, but maybe I need to start finding a way to write them down and just keep track. I usually remember for the most part. So we'll see how I do this week. I did not do well in the parlay for the pay-per-view the last time I did this, so I didn't win anything. I got a couple of the fights right, but I think 2 out of the however many 5 that were on the main card, not great. I couldn't even win the round robins that I put money on as well. So it is what it is. I'll just make picks because it just adds a little more to it. I'm breaking it down for a reason. I'm going through all of it for more than just to talk about it for an hour on the internet. So that's it though. That's it for me. I'm out. I'm done. Not much more to talk about. But we got a lot of fights coming up in the near future. And let's see, we got pay-per-views. Oh shit, that's the wrong thing I just clicked on. I did want to see. I think we have another fight night and then the pay-per-view. Yes, we got fight night. Hermanson versus Pfeiffer. Ooh, that's a good one. I'm gonna be. I'm excited for that one, but I'm gonna be out of town, so I'm gonna have to watch that on my phone or catch it later. I don't know, but and so yeah, we have one more fight night, and then we have UFC 298, which should be a banger as well. Alexander Volkanovski versus Ilia Topuria for the featherweight title. Robert Whittaker versus Paulo Costa. Jeff Neal versus Ian Gary. Murad Davalishvili versus Henry Cejudo. Anthony Hernandez versus Roman Kopylov. That's the main card. It's a banger. I like it, and it's going to continue to build until we get to 300. So pretty good on that portion. Don't forget to watch the fights this weekend. Let's see, 5 p.m. for the main card to start Arizona time. So go to UFC events, Google UFC events, and you will see a page that comes up right away. Not even a page, it's just a Google result, and it just says Ultimate Fighting Championship. Gives you main card, prelim card, tells you right at the top there of the first fight that when it starts, and it'll tell you in your time zone if you have your location turned on. So easy way to find out, or listen to what I say, account for your time zone if you're not in Arizona. 5 p.m. Arizona time, so a little bit of an early fight card. That means the prelims will be on probably by 2 o'clock, something like that. So yeah, enjoy the fights. Don't forget to watch. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Go check out my social media. I am mostly on Facebook and Instagram, but you can catch me on TikTok too. I just made a TikTok of me and the boys playing some golf and hitting the smelling salts. And for context, there's a video right under it with the fight companion that Joe Rogan, Brendan Schaub, Joey Diaz, and Eddie Bravo did for UFC 297 when they were doing the smelling salts as well. It's funny. People think it's dumb. People are doing like smelling salts for whatever. It's funny. It's whatever. And honestly, it's whatever. I like to have fun sometimes, all right? So don't judge me. Anyway, go check it out. TikTok. I'm Going Rounds podcast everywhere except for X, formerly known as Twitter. It's Going Rounds pod there. I don't post there a ton, but I am on there here and there. I plan on getting on there a little more in the near future. As for me, I'm out. Come back next Thursday. We'll get a recap of UFC Vegas 85 and a preview of UFC Fight Night Hermanson versus Pfeiffer, which should be fun. There's some good fights on there. Yeah, enjoy your night. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Tell a friend. Help me grow the channel. Blah, blah, blah. All that good stuff. We'll see you next week. Come back. Join in again. Appreciate everybody that was here and watched this time. Have a good night. I'm out. Peace.